What happens when you kick someone out of your band? Well, if that person is Dave Mustaine, they come back and try to destroy you with music that's faster, heavier, and angrier than anything you've ever made. In 1983, Metallica threw Dave Mustaine out of the band. They said he drank too much, caused too many problems. Dave was mad, really mad, but instead of giving up, he decided to get revenge in the best way possible by starting his own band and showing Metallica that he could make it without them. That band was called Megadeth, and the first album, it was a total disaster and a masterpiece at the same time. Today we're going to talk about an album cover that made with tinfoil and ketchup, $12,000 that may or may not have been spent on drugs, and how one man's anger created one of the most important thrash metal albums ever made. This is the story of Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good. The album that almost never happened but changed metal music forever. Let's start at the beginning. Most of us know the story, but I'll tell it quickly for context. Dave Mustaine was originally in Metallica, but due to his drinking, drug abuse, and other behavior, he was kicked out of the band. So then Dave starts to get his life together and meets up with someone else. He is Dave Ellefson, who happens to be another musician, and they form a new band called Megadeth. Now, Dave Mustaine was still very angry, so he didn't want to get back at them in a way, but he did it a kind of revenge where you say, hey, look at me, I'm going to make another band and play faster and heavier than you. In other words, he didn't set out to destroy the band. He wanted to show them that he could survive without them. In the beginning, they wanted to find a vocalist, so they auditioned a few people, such as Cora Kane, Billy Bonds, and John Cyrus, the latter of which went on to play with Agent Steel. But none of them worked out, so Dave Mustaine decided to be the vocalist, rhythm guitarist, co-lead guitarist, as well as the band's main lyricist and songwriter. The next step was for them to record a demo. In 1984, they recorded a 3-song demo tape called Last Rites, which was engineered by Karat Faye. It was released on March 9th, 1984. That demo was passed around the metal underground at the time, as their rivals Metallica had already released their debut album, Kill 'Em All. But their dream of proving Metallica wrong started to unfold as the demo caught the attention of someone from Combat Records. As a result, they were asked to sign a deal and offered $8,000 to record and produce an album. But it was not enough, so luckily the label had faith in them, offered them another $4,000. Now rumor has it that they blew most of the money on drugs and alcohol, fired their producer, and produced the album themselves, but according to guitarist Chris Poland, in an interview with Metal Injection, he said it was not like that. Now granted, he admitted to buying drugs, but he said that back then they were not that expensive. Not only that, but Dave Mustaine controlled the finances and they had to live on a budget of about $100 a week. But anyway, let me continue with the story. They eventually recorded the album and completed it at Indigo Ranch Studios in Malibu, California. Finally, the album was released on June 12, 1985. It's the only Megadeth album that didn't chart on the Billboard 200, as it was released through an independent label with little promotion. Despite this, it went on to become one of Combat Records' best sellers. Let me talk about the album cover, as it has a somewhat chaotic and unexpected story behind it, much like the band's early days. The original idea for the album cover was much different than what it became. Dave Mustaine had his clear vision for the album's artwork, which was to feature the band's newly created mascot, Vic Rattlehead, and then Vic would be inspired by the See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Speak No Evil monkeys, which translated into more of a metal aesthetic. Dave Mustaine drew an initial sketch and had a friend create a painting from it, which was used on early Megadeth t-shirts. The plan was for Combat Records, their label, to use this artwork as the basis for the album cover. I tried to find an image of the drawing, I couldn't, but don't worry, I want to talk about something more interesting that involves tinfoil and ketchup. Going back to the story, it's 1985. The young band Megadeth are eagerly awaiting to receive their first box of albums. One day, they get a package, they open it, but then they're not happy with what they found inside. Apparently, the original artwork had been lost by the studio, so they made an improvised makeshift cover. According to Dave Mustaine, he said, It was a plastic skull with tinfoil and ketchup. Both Dave Mustaine and Dave Ellefson were very unhappy with it. The incident became an early lesson for them, as it was us against the world, which would go on to be the attitude that the band would have going forward. But the album cover was released, and this homemade appearance was representative of the raw and unpolished nature of the album itself. It represented everything that the band had to endure to get the album out, from budget constraint to spending money on drugs. It eventually became a very iconic image. The album would eventually be released both in 2002 and 2018, and these editions had the album art that Dave Mustaine wanted. As you can see, the album cover looked much better. Let's talk more about the music and the album itself. Back in 1985, thrash metal was still in its infancy. Many bands had already released their debut albums. Even Metallica had already released their second album. Then there were bands like Exodus, Slayer, and Anthrax. They already released albums, so people had an idea of what thrash metal sounded like. But this album was different, and it brought in a new sound that people had never heard before. It was a sound of anger and betrayal put to music. There was blistering speed, aggressive vocals, and intricate and complex guitar riffs. They wanted to create an album that was faster and heavier than anything out there at the time. But despite this, it has one major flaw, and that's the production quality. The original album sounds very muddy and unpolished, which is why the album received a lot of criticism in the beginning. I remember the first time I bought this album. It was late 80s. I was just starting to get into metal music. Back then, I didn't understand anything about music or production, as I had already been listening to bands like Metallica and Anthrax, so I thought it sounded very raw and unpolished. Years later, I can appreciate it for what it is, and many fans feel the same, as it's a very raw and unpolished sound. It gives it its own charm. I also remember listening to this and hearing one song sounded just like Metallica's The Four Horsemen, and I'll talk about that one later. Despite the raw production, the album showcases Dave Mustaine's distinctive guitar playing. He teamed up with other guitarists, Chris Poland, the lead guitar, and they both played lightning-fast solos and precise and technical guitar riffs that were innovative for the time. The guitar work ended up setting a high bar for technicality in thrash. There was also the rhythm section of David Ellefson on bass and Gar Samuelson on drums, and they brought a unique flavor to the album. Gar Samuelson had a background in jazz, and he incorporated unusual rhythms and fills, and that gave Megadeth a distinctive sound not commonly found in other thrash bands. On the other hand, David Ellefson's bass lines are often prominent. And finally, we had Dave Mustaine's vocals, which are raw, angry, and full of venom. He wasn't a traditional metal singer, but despite this, his delivery perfectly matched the lyrical themes of death, violence, and the occult. Therefore, his vocal style was perfect for what the band was trying to convey. Then there were the songs. Opening track, Last Rites, Love to Death. This has this unexpected, eerie piano intro before exploding into a galloping, double bass-driven thrash assault. Killing is My Business and Business is Good is a fast and aggressive anthem showcasing the band's intent. Rattlehead is a speed anthem with memorable riffs and a driving tempo. The Skull Beneath the Skin features incredibly intricate guitar work and a dark, sinister atmosphere. Looking Down Across slows down the pace a little bit, offering some more doomy, mid-paced, dissonant harmonics. Then there's Mechanics, the re-recorded, much faster version of the song Dave Mustaine wrote with Metallica, which was The Four Horsemen. Prime example of Megadeth's early emphasis on speed and aggression. Finally, a weird cover song, These Boots Are Meant for Walking, a controversial cover of the Nancy Sinatra song with Mustaine's altered, more aggressive lyrics that led to bleeping in the original release. Over the years, there have been a lot of positive and negative things said about the album. For me personally, I never liked it that much, or in other words, I thought the next few albums after this were much better, but I can appreciate it for what it is. If you read some reviews on the Metal Archives website, you'll see a lot of people have given this album a lot of praise. One reviewer said it was a miracle given its shoestring budget and the band's state during production, yet it aged extremely well and has not lost any of its impact or bite, only getting better with age. Many other reviewers emphasize its raw and unchiseled gem quality, its potency as a debut, and its role as establishing Megadeth as a relevant band and member of the Big Four. Someone also said that Megadeth was clearly a step ahead of everyone else in terms of musicianship. People also commented saying that the leads and riffs are insanely dazzling with solos that are difficult to play. They also commented that Poland's improvisational style sometimes bleeds into experimental territory. People also commented that the rhythm section of Elfson and Samuelson was locked in and a furious force. Gar Samuelson's drumming is a display of mastery that kicks Lars's ass. His fusion style of drumming adds dynamism with super hot double kick grooves and powerful, well-controlled fills. In terms of specific songs, some people said that The Skull Beneath the Skin is simply brutal, slow, threatening, dark, and suffocating, with acidic guitars and an incessant rhythm. Looking Down the Cross is often named as the best song on the album. It's praised for its epic feel, intense intro, impressive maturity, highly interesting lyrics, gloomy atmosphere, and appreciable, almost hypnotic instrumental section. But of course, there were a few negative comments. Obviously, most of the criticism was related to the production. People pointed out specific flaws in the original mix, including lead guitars being hard-panned, crackling sounds during last rites, and vocals and certain drums being pretty buried. The rhythm guitar is often too quiet and the bass can be scarcely audible. The drums sometimes have a flat tone and cymbals can destroy the mixing job completely. Finally, some parts are noted as messy or sloppy, contributing to an unfocused and aimless feel. People also mentioned Dave Mustaine's vocals and frequently described them as nasally performance, an acquired taste, and lacking as a traditional singer. He's considered subpar compared to the professionalism of other thrash singers, and his vocals are sometimes deemed plain bad. His voice is characterized as raw, uncontrolled, and very whiny. Other reviewers mentioned his higher pitched voice in the earlier release and that he doesn't sound that good or feels weak, with the anger not used as effectively as on later albums. His voice is also described as having a drunken character and being samey across tracks. As for the songs, a lot of it was the Nancy Sinatra song These Boots. Said it was a little odd, goofy, and unnecessary, a lame cover song, very bad choice and very bad played, truly bad song, and barely more than a joke. Its inclusion is questioned and is seen as a pissy little breakup letter that doesn't stand out from the originals in a positive way. People also didn't like mechanics, saying it was very slightly unremarkable. Suffering from bland lyrics and being damn catchy, but ultimately sloppy. Some reviewers felt that Metallica's The Four Horsemen was better or more progressive structured. It was also noted that Megadeth didn't seem to put the time they put into other songs into this song, making it one of the weakest. And that's the story of Dave Mustaine's Revenge, which started as anger and hurt feelings, became one of the most important albums in thrash metal history. Sure, it sounded rough. The cover was made with kitchen supplies, but sometimes the best art comes from the worst situations. Dave Mustaine proved that getting kicked out of Metallica wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. Megadeth went on to become one of the big four thrash bands right alongside the band that rejected him. So let me know what you think. Did Dave get his revenge? Was this album better than Metallica's early work? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story about metal history, make sure to hit the subscribe button, ring the bell for more videos. And if you want to hear more stories like this one, check out this video I made about Megadeth euthanasia. I'll put that right here. I'll talk about whether or not they sold out on that album. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.